Democrats and rhinos in Congress continue to circle the political drain. It's Friday, May 15th, and this is news and commentary from America's Heartland. You're watching Heartlander News. Well, hey there, and welcome in to Heartlander News. I'm Chris Stigall. You know, when we talk about John Thune, and over there in the Senate, we've been talking about the filibuster and the fact that we can't get the Save America Act overwhelmingly positive and supported by most everyone in the country, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. Everybody believes who's sane you should be able to prove who you are as an American citizen before you vote. Everybody gets that. Nobody really disputes it that's serious. And yet somehow we can't get it through the United States Senate. And why? Because Democrats value illegal voters, first of all. But specifically, we can't get it through the Senate because of this thing called the filibuster. I think most of us know what that is by now. But over the years, this filibuster has been bastardized, and it's become a zombie filibuster, meaning you can shut down the Senate without actually doing the work of a real filibuster. We've laid this out. The old Jimmy Stewart talk till you drop kind of thing to end debate. So many senators have said, okay, if you don't want to get rid of it, Thune, at least make the senators talk until they're exhausted to end debate. He hasn't been willing to do that yet. And those of us who know Democrats well understand that Democrats, if they ever get control of the Senate, the first thing they're going to do is do what Thune won't do, which is get rid of the filibuster so we can go to a simple majority vote on everything. That's what Democrats want to do. You need to look no further than Pramila Jayapal. In clip 80 here, she gives it up. She finally says what we all understand. The Democrats have every intention of doing this anyway. And so I'm just warning you now, if you're a conservative or a Republican, and you're wondering to yourself, why is Thune sticking so hard and fast to this filibuster thing? Just keep in mind, the Democrats are telling us exactly what they plan to do about it if they ever get the chance.
For years, since I got into Congress, I have been saying that we need to pass what we passed in the House, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We needed to get big money out of politics. We needed to reform the Supreme Court so it actually represents the people of the United States. Now, all of these things are blocked by the Jim Crow legacy filibuster in the Senate that refuses to allow the majority of the will of the people to come through in any of these things. And so the Supreme Court has been, the highest court in the land, the only court with no ethics, no transparency at all. And they have continually been doing whatever they can to turn back the clock. And so if we don't understand the consequences of that, and to our previous conversation, if we keep going back to say, well, we keep the filibuster in place because it allows us to be, thoughtful in our deliberations in the Senate, we are missing the fact that 40 mostly white men who represent 12% of the country's population in the United States Senate can block us from actually reinstituting voting rights, reforming the Supreme Court, and doing all of the things that are required for us to uphold our democracy.
So there you have it. They're not even in power. And they're already telling you, you give us the chance to be in power. And that's exactly what we will do. We will blow up the filibuster and we will pass everything we want with a simple majority vote. And we will also, more importantly, what she's saying, not using this word, pack the Supreme Court. They want to take 9 justices and make it 13 or more. They want to grow the Supreme Court, and they want the nominees to be picked from their liberal enclaves so that the Supreme Court is chock-a-block full of people like Justice What is a Woman, the most recent appointee to the Supreme Court, Ketanji Jackson Brown Jackson, whatever the hell her name is. She doesn't know what a woman is. That's the direction the left wants to send the Supreme Court, with additional bodies there, and blow up the filibuster. So you and I know this. All of us who are paying attention to this know this, and yet the Senate Majority Leader continues to stand firm and pat in number 81. As for him, when it comes to the filibuster, he feels there's just nothing he can do, bless his heart.
Where do you stand on that currently? Would you reconsider getting rid of the filibuster to get it across the finish line?
We don't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster. We called it up on the floor March, I think, 17th. We were on it for several weeks. and had a very spirited debate. In fact, I think with the exception of maybe a couple of Republican senators, made more speeches on the floor in support of the SAVE Act than almost any other senator. And we had some votes on it. And we voted on the narrow issue, which is the most popular one, of voter ID. And we put the Democrats on the record. Every single Democrat voted against it. We added, and one of the other elements, also popular, was whether or not biological boys ought to play in girls' sports. We had that vote, and every Democrat voted against that as well. So we've taken what I think are probably the two issues, in my view, that have the broadest public support and put the Democrats on record, and every single one of them voted against it. So we'll look for opportunities to get other votes. There was a vote on the budget resolution, an amendment that Senator Kennedy offered that didn't even get 50 votes on the floor. And so we're continuing to look for opportunities to advance that legislation. Obviously, it's something that I support. I think we all support. And we think it's something that the American people are broadly supportive as well.
Yeah. So, translation there, not going to nuke the filibuster. It's going to stay in place. So I know you're frustrated. Scott Pressler is very frustrated. And coming up this weekend, I think some voters in various states are going to be letting their frustration be heard too, like in Louisiana. You know, Bill Cassidy, the Republican senator who is extraordinarily hostile to the Trump administration, holding on to what the Washington Times calls is a losing political hand heading into his primary on Saturday. President Trump endorsed one of Mr. Cassidy's Republican challengers. It's a question of whether Cassidy loses this weekend or in the eventual runoff, says the folks at Sabato's Crystal Ball. Mr. Coleman, a New Orleans native, told the Washington Times Mr. Cassidy, who's running for a third term, more or less signed off on the end of his political career with his 2021 vote to convict Mr. Trump on impeachment charges of the incitement of insurrection over the January 6th riots at the Capitol. Scott Pressler, standing outside Senator Thune's office, reminding Louisianans and Texans of what's up for grabs here in their primaries.
Hey everybody, this is Scott Pressler. I am here outside of Senate Majority Leader Thune's Washington, D.C. office. And while we were filming a video, just had a beautiful family from Kansas come up and say, Scott, we must pass the Save America Act. And truly, I mean this in earnest. This is the single most important piece of legislation the American people want. It is country saving. And I've done my best to be diplomatic. I've done my best to reach across the aisle and work with members of Congress in order to pass legislation that 84% of Americans want. And yet here we are in May of 2026, and we still have yet to pass the Save America Act. And that's why it's time to play hardball. This Saturday, I ask you to defeat Senator Bill Cassidy. If Senate Majority Leader Thune is not going to give us what we want, then you take away his top ally. You take away what he has. Give us the Save America Act or lose your seats. And that's why on Tuesday, May 26th, we have a Texas election. I proudly endorsed Attorney General Ken Paxton. I ask for your vote for General Paxton. Defeat Senator John Cornyn. He voted for red flag laws. He promotes amnesty. He wants deportation relief. I'm so sorry, but it's time to go. Again, send a clear and decisive message to Senate Majority Leader Thune. If you do not pass what we want as the majority, the popular vote, then you are going to lose with meticulous precision, colleague after colleague, until you give us what we want. Peacefully. Game on.
Okay. So there you have it. And I tell you what, Scott Pressler is gaining a lot of steam. You're hearing many calls for him perhaps to lead the entirety of the Republican Party. I've known this guy for quite a while. I used to have him on a previous show of mine with regularity when he was literally couch surfing his way through Pennsylvania, just to door knock and help turn out the vote and get people registered to vote. He's now become a political force. And what's going on in Texas and Louisiana, for that matter, with both Cassidy and Cornyn, it's going to be big this month. We will keep a watch on it, but I would not bet money right now on the two incumbent senators. That's for sure. Speaking of the Senate, while we're there, the Senate parliamentarian has reared its ugly head again. This is basically the rules keeper who I'm told is a partisan too. Some people disagree with that, but it sounds like it. Senate Republicans now have to rewrite portions of the $72 billion immigration enforcement funding package to preserve the filibuster-proof status. The Senate parliamentarian advised parts of the bill as written do not comply with the chamber's budget reconciliation rules. So the funding of the border, the funding of ICE and other things that they did through what's called budget reconciliation, meaning they don't have to go through a debate. They don't have to deal with the filibuster. The parliamentarian then weighs in and says, oh, well, you didn't quite draw that up right, so it's technically not going to pass our rule. So they got to go back to work on that. We'll watch that as well. The parliamentarian said sections providing a total of $23 billion in appropriations to Border Patrol provide funding for activities that fall outside of the committee's jurisdiction. So there is some creative movement amongst the Republicans to at least get our Border Patrol and things of that nature funded through budget reconciliation, but the parliamentarian, clearly a partisan, trying to block that. One bit of positive news yesterday, or I guess 2 days ago, if you want to call it positive, I think it's just common sense. The Senate unanimously voted to advance a resolution sponsored by John Kennedy, also of Louisiana, to suspend senators' pay during a government shutdown. This is something that should just be obvious. I can't imagine that there's a single member of Congress that would publicly say to their constituents, I should continue to get paid while we shut the government down. Maybe some, probably Democrats, but nevertheless, the resolution passed unanimously. It only applies to members of the Senate, does not need to be approved by the House or signed by President Trump. It would take effect after the midterm, so it would not apply to a possible government shutdown this fall. Republicans think is likely to happen because of the deep animosity between Trump and Democrats. The Senate voted 99-0 on this motion to end debate proceeding to the resolution, signaling it will easily have enough votes to support it. The measure stipulates that if Congress fails to provide funding for federal agencies before the deadline, members of the Senate will not get paid. Now, their paychecks would go, in theory, into an escrow account. They'll get paid on the back end once the government is reopened, but during a shutdown, there would be no deposits in their bank accounts until the shutdown would be completed. So that's, I guess, if you want a little bit of common sense. Over on the House side, there are a couple of Democrats that have just vanished and aren't showing up for work and haven't for weeks. This is another amazing thing. How can you run for Congress? How can you be an elected representative of the people and not show up for work for weeks on end? That's happening. Congressional leaders are straining to get their absentee members to return to Capitol Hill as the House's vote on margins that are growing ever more precarious. Just yesterday, an Iran war powers resolution failed to pass in a tie vote. Any lawmaker could have tipped the outcome, and half a dozen were gone. People cannot miss votes, said a senior House Democrat. Well, I would think not. The truants on that vote included Representative Tom Keane of New Jersey and Frederica Wilson of Florida. Both have missed weeks of votes. Weeks of votes. This is the kind of thing that makes voters hate Congress. The mystery of Wilson's absence was solved Thursday. She is recovering from major eye surgery. But Keane of New Jersey, his mysterious disappearance has not been answered. Hakeem Jeffries urged Wilson in a recent phone call to return to Washington as quickly as possible. The Democrat leader said, "You've got to come. The numbers are too small." Wilson, 83, explained about her eye surgery, said she plans to return to D.C. next Wednesday. Why are we watching 83-year-olds with cataracts continue to serve, actually miss votes and sit at home in hospice or whatever the hell she's doing? Meanwhile, Mike Johnson, even he, a Republican, and this is two Democrats we're talking about here, he seems largely in the dark about it, saying that Keane has a medical issue. That's all I know about it. That's all I can say. We're praying for him. The New York Times reported that Keane canceled a scheduled appearance at a May 28th breakfast event. His chief of staff told reporters there are no cameras where Tom is. Neither Keane nor Wilson have given indications they plan to drop their bids for re-election. That's the most amazing thing about it all. They've been missing votes for weeks, over a month in Keane's case, and they have no intention of not continuing to run this fall, apparently, and probably will win. And you say, well, that's their constituents' fault. It is. I mean, ultimately, if your representative is this Frederica Wilson or Tom Keane in New Jersey, and you continue to vote for them, and they're not even there to vote on your behalf. I mean, but that's Democrats. It's really not about principle. It's not about doing anything but gumming up the works and tearing down the country. I guess they feel like the Democrat Party is going to handle it without them. They don't need them. But in this case, they do. If either one of those two had shown up, the War Powers resolution would have passed the House, probably died in the Senate, neither here nor there. Speaking of Democrats and their destructive tendencies, over in Virginia, Fairfax County, the Democrat prosecutor there has been exposed for dropping charges against an illegal alien accused of kidnapping a 4-year-old girl. Brad Knott lets it rip. This is a Republican from North Carolina in a hearing. This Soros-backed attorney in Fairfax County. Listen to this in clip 90. Tear this guy apart.
And things got heated. Congressman Brad Knott, a Republican, pinning down Toscano on his decision to drop criminal charges against an accused illegal alien child sex predator.
A disgusting, perverted individual preying on children, that you dismissed the case. As the father of 2 young girls, one of them's 5. That is as shameful as anything I have seen.
Talk to me
Quit defending
that I don't
the
care
indefensible.
about people in my
you clearly
community.
don't.
Absolutely
You dismissed
not.
the case, and it's shameful.
Sir,
You're a coward. You are a coward.
You won't even let me talk to you about the case.
It's indefensible.
It is indefensible, and good for the congressman. Didn't know him. Someone to watch. I like that righteous indignation from the congressman during that House Judiciary subcommittee on immigration integrity, security, and enforcement. Not noted the case of an illegal alien from Honduras with multiple prior convictions for burglary and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He was arrested in Fairfax County after allegedly breaking into an apartment and attempting to kidnap a sleeping 4-year-old girl. Rodriguez broke into the girl's room while she was asleep. When the toddler's mother heard her crying, she entered the room and alleges her daughter told her a man grabbed her and then ran away. After his arrest, police said the illegal alien's fingerprints were found in the girl's bedroom. By May, this scumbag prosecutor's office sought a plea deal with Rodriguez in which a criminal court judge would be barred from sentencing him to more than 2 years in prison. The judge overseeing the case rejected the deal, suggesting the sentence was far too lenient. Of course it was. And that is disgusting. And the representative is correct to display his outrage. And this is the kind of thing that Democrats continue to do, that continues to remind the American people that while you may not be completely satisfied, if not outright frustrated with the likes of John Thune and Republicans who are squishy, handing the keys over to these lunatics is certain destruction. Ms. Jayapal says what they're going to do. Pack the Supreme Court, blow up the filibuster, and Katie bar the door. They'll do any damn crazy thing they want. Meanwhile, these Soros prosecutors continuing to turn loose prisoners right and left. Illegal aliens with rap sheets a mile long. Just turn them loose. Kidnapping, raping. Turn them loose. That's the Democrat Party, and that's why even still at this hour, as frustrating, to put it mildly, as Republicans are, Democrats can't seem to gain any traction. Speaking of, 6 migrants, including 14-year-old child, found dead in a boxcar in Laredo, Texas. Thankfully, the Trump administration, all it took was a new president, cracked down on the border, but it doesn't mean people are still not trying to smuggle both sex trafficking and human trafficking across our borders. 6 migrants, including a 14-year-old boy, found dead in a train boxcar Sunday in Laredo, Texas. 3 of the victims were Mexican. The other 3 were known to be Honduran. The migrants are considered to have been victims of a human smuggling operation. Is there anything more loathsome? You know, as we start to talk about the World Cup coming to the United States soon, that is something that I'm hearing from law enforcement, particularly throughout the Heartland. They're very, very concerned about sex trafficking and human trafficking. It's still very, very real. It's a disgusting scourge in this country. And again, thankfully, this administration decided to do something about it. But the number of missing and exploited children that came pouring across our southern border over the last 4 years of that pretend president we call Joe Biden, unforgivable. And you can bet your bottom dollar if they were to take over, they would open the southern border again, and we would be right back to human rights violations that would make your skin crawl if you have a soul.